Hey everyone, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I am McKinley412. We're going to be looking at this 10-game slate on Monday night to kind of steer you in the right direction. We'll look at some cash builds, some GPP builds, as well as just kind of like the rankings for everything. Weather-wise, one thing we do have to be paying attention to, the Chicago White Sox against Detroit. It's looking dicey at the moment. I'm not going to say it's a postponement, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. Just looking at notes and looking at what meteorologists are saying, I'm not expecting it, but who knows? I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So just kind of a 9-game slate here. We are absolutely loaded up at the top with Nola, Manoah, and Alcantara. And then there's kind of a pretty steep drop off in my opinion, but there is one super cheap pitcher that I think can open up everything to really, you can jam in every stud that you want on this slate. So let's just kind of dive right into it. Nola, Manoah, and Alcantara. I mean, I think these three are pretty all interchangeable. I don't think one guy is absolutely sticking above the rest. Alcantara, he is putting up historic numbers at this point, just with how many innings he's been going. I mean, look at 4 of his past 5 starts, he's going 8-9 innings. That is unheard of in today's MLB. And he's doing it with, a pitch count that's not insanely high as either. So Alcantara, he's got a tough matchup going up against Philadelphia. Philadelphia can strike out quite a bit, so maybe he can still get there. But still, it's a pretty tough matchup. And he's not like guaranteed by a win by any means, because on the other side of that game, we have Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola, his K rate is very nice. He can certainly have a ceiling game like Alcantara, close to 40 DK points. He started off the season a little bumpy. You can kind of see 5 and 4 strikeouts. It wasn't going too far into games, but he seems to have found his form here. Going deeper into games, strikeouts are there. Better matchup than Alcantara going up against Miami. And then you got Manoah, who has the easiest matchup of the three. However, his strikeout rate is not what the strikeout rate is of the other 2 guys. So, I mean, he's safe at 9.8K. I have no issues playing with him there. So really, it's kind of like, who do you want to play? Alcantara, Nola, or Manoah? I can make an argument for all 3 being the first. I can make an argument for all 3 being the second and the third. So I have them ranked like this, but if you want to put Alcantara up top, Manoah third, who cares? That's just kind of where it is. Then you kind of got a big drop off, at least in my opinion, for Christian Javier. 9.6K going up against Texas. I mean, he's not going deep into games. It's tough to get excited about him when just for 200 or 400 more, I can get Manoah or I can get Nola. So I don't expect really any ownership on this guy at all in DFS here tonight. Josiah Gray for Washington, going up against Atlanta. The big strikeout guy. Atlanta can strike out quite a bit at the plate. So you're kind of hoping for just kind of like a big strikeout game. One thing that he's got going for him was that he faced Atlanta earlier in the season and he got 22 DK points, 5 strikeouts. So Josiah Gray, I have him third in this mid-tier. I'm not super excited about this mid-tier overall. I have Darvish as my number 1 and then Wood second. Darvish is going up against the Cubs. We do have to look at the weather here. Some strong winds could be coming into play, blowing out. So if it is indeed, I don't know exactly how strong, but if we're looking at 15, 20 mile an hour winds blowing out at Wrigley, it's tough to get super excited about Darvish. So even though I have him top in my mid-tier rankings, I'm just not super thrilled about this mid-tier in general. Alex Wood, he was the other guy that I mentioned. That's kind of like in the top 2. I have him right next to Darvish there. He's all right. Again, it's not super exciting. It's just more, he's got probably one of the easier matchups against the guys in this mid-tier. And he can limit some of the damage and get some strikeouts there as well. Singer going up against San Fran, don't have any interest. Kelly against Cincinnati, not too much interest. Same with Keller against St. Louis. So that mid-tier, we went through it pretty quick, but I mean, you can kind of see it's pretty dicey. Over in the cheap tier, first guy I got is Thompson. Now, Thompson is only 4.3K. And this is the guy that I was mentioning earlier who can really open things up. He's a top prospect in the St. Louis organization in terms of pitching. And okay, he's going pretty deep in the games in his first start there. 74 pitches. If he can bump up to 80 pitches or even farther, and he's going up against Pittsburgh, weaker offense in the entire league. 4.3K, awesome. Sign me up. I think you can pair him with one of the top 3 guys in a cash build and get anybody that you want on the slate. I got Ian Anderson for Atlanta, second here. I'm not too excited about his price tag at 7.7K. I know I put him in a cheap category, but I kind of had to make the cutoff somewhere. He's consistent, but it's nothing special. I think if he's just going to get you, on average 15 DK points at 7.7K, that doesn't really pay it off at all. Washington, they don't really strike out too much as a team in general. They strike out less against left-handed pitching. So we have a righty here. So that's, an advantage there, but still, they don't strike out a whole lot. 7.7K, I think, is just a little bit too steep for his price tag. But yeah, he can limit some damage. So if he does end up in your lineups, okay, but don't get too excited about it. Steele, same thing as Darvish. Strong winds blowing out. Don't get too excited about that. Hearn against Houston. Hearn really struggles against right-handed batting. He's got severe splits. So left-hand pitcher, I'm going to be targeting those Houston bats. You can kind of see it. Altuve, Bregman, already highlighting them there. Chris Archer. This is not the Chris Archer of old. Obviously, you guys know that. It's been a couple years since we've seen that. But he's not striking anybody out. He's not going deep into games. Yeah, he's limiting damage. He hasn't allowed a home run in how many starts in a row? And 1 or fewer earned runs in 4 of his past 5. But still, when he's only going 60, 70 pitches, maybe 4, 5 innings, it's tough to really get excited about a guy like that, even at 7.1K. Everybody else down here, Flexen, you can kind of see is probably the only one that I have remaining interest in. And yeah, so it went through that pretty quick, but you can kind of tell it's the big 3-headed monster up at the top. A lot of iffiness after that, maybe Darvish and Wood possibly. But Thompson is probably my favorite point per dollar guy outside of those, big 3 guys. So turning towards the bats, I got Houston righties and St. Louis as the top 2 stacks here. St. Louis going up against Keller for Pittsburgh and their atrocious bullpen afterwards, and then the righties of Houston. So I put Goldschmidt, Yepez, Donovan, Altuve, and Bregman. I thought this was a nice kind of starting start to it. This isn't an official core. Obviously, things can change. But this is kind of where I was starting off. I was just kind of looking at the numbers, which of the St. Louis guys do best against right-handed pitching, and who could possibly be in the lineup tonight. Goldschmidt, Yepez, and Donovan were the 3 guys that ranked highest on that list for St. Louis. And then on the Houston side, Altuve and Bregman for sure. Now, you're not going to be able to get this lineup with 2 of these guys. You can. It's totally possible. But it's going to look real dicey real quick with just 2.4K remaining. At catcher, if Moreno is in again for Toronto, he's dirt cheap. I think he's 2.3K now. One of the top prospects in all of baseball. He's a catcher. So you could jam him in. But take one of these guys out. If you throw in Thompson that I've been mentioning earlier, you're at 4.2K remaining. You can round out a Houston stack, a St. Louis stack, even throw in like a one-off of Toronto or whatnot. So you can easily fit guys in just because Thompson opens things up so greatly. So I think for cash, maybe I'm going to be heading there. I'm not fully 100% decided, but I just wanted to show you that Thompson, once you throw him in there, you can get a stud pitcher and pretty much stud bats as well. GPP route, I'm kind of interested in Arizona going up against Cincinnati. Going up against Mike Minor for Cincinnati. Minor has had 2 starts so far this season. He's allowed 5 home runs in those 2 starts. So it has been pretty ugly. Doesn't strike many guys out. Walked quite a few guys there in his last start. So I went with the Arizona guys who have the strongest ISO against left-handed pitching. Luplow and Walker were the 2 guys that absolutely stood out. So those were the first 2 guys that were in this kind of build that I was doing. Luplow and Walker. I threw in Marte just as well, just kind of round out a nice little medium-sized stack of that top of the lineup. Then I paired them with Toronto. Toronto going up against Bradish. He's a fade. I just didn't have any room there. But Bradish is a fade. Toronto is going to be a team that I'm going to be targeting as well. And Bradish is a reverse splits pitcher, so getting those right-handed bats of Toronto. Obviously, if you go Walker, you can't get Vlad Jr., which kind of is a bummer, but you can still easily get Bichette and Springer in there. And then I did kind of land in a weird spot when doing this, but if you throw in Yu Darvish, maybe those wins just aren't as strong as we were expecting or are projecting in Chicago at Wrigley Field this evening. But even if they are, even if not, I don't think he's going to get super high ownership. It's probably going to be a little bit elevated just because he's Yu Darvish and he has that name recognition. But if you can start off with Yu Darvish and just, I mean, there's a way. There's a way. I don't want to give everything out. Can't give a full lineup out for you guys, but you can go Yu Darvish. You can throw in Alek Manoah. And then I mentioned, you know, a catcher, if Moreno is starting, he was in the past 2 days, so I don't know if he's going to be in there again today. Who knows? But again, a top prospect in all of baseball, 2.2K, totally fine. So that's kind of where cash is kind of rolling, just kind of throwing the studs. And then even with Thompson, you can throw him in there. Even in GPP, if you want to go Thompson, totally okay with that. But pitching is pretty limited. You got the three-headed monster, Darvish and Wood possibly. Gray, you're looking for strikeouts. Thompson really opens everything up for you. And yeah, that's kind of it. Leverage Shack is just kind of going against these top three guys. Cheap guys. Pittsburgh, Thompson really struggles. It's possible. I can see if Thompson's seen some ownership here, so maybe Thompson struggles a little bit. Pittsburgh can go off. San Fran, this is just, they're shockingly cheapish. They're not super cheap, but they're fairly cheap overall. Going up against, who are they going up against? Forgot. Going up against Singer, who's, you know, he's nothing super special, and it's just a good lineup in general. I could see them going a little bit under-owned. As far as GPP, San Diego, Chicago Cubs, maybe the wind's blowing out, and you can get some long balls there. Arizona, I already talked about their home run ability, going up against Minor. And then Seattle, going up against Chris Archer. Maybe Archer, you know, he only goes 3-4 innings as usual, and then he gets that bullpen. Maybe Seattle can do some damage there at pretty low ownership. So that kind of covers things for the slate. Pretty straightforward, but also not at the same time. I think there's a lot of different directions that you could go, especially depending on who you want for your SP1. So that kind of covers everything. As always, thanks for watching, and good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you in the next video.